Hello, this is Carl and welcome to today's video, which is called A Child is Born. And I hope that you're getting a lot of benefit from the other videos and audios so far, and I hope that you took the time to do the Mother Earth meditation. I put quite a lot of stuff in that, and I think you get some huge benefits out of it. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to do, and you know what's coming, is to just relax and surrender and ask for that inner guidance. So let's take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment and relax, and feel that wave of relaxation moving down from the top of your head to the tips of your toes and out into Mother Earth. And you can just imagine that wave running down through you and see it, or talk yourself through it, or feel it, or any combination of those. Okay, so let's take another deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and then as you breathe out slowly, release all of that stuff. The day, the cares of the day, the worries, concerns, any bills you've got to pay, any problems at work, any problems with people, any sort of lists of things on your mind that you've got to do. All of that stuff, and you know what stuff you've got on your mind. So just make the decision right now to just let that stuff go. Back to the universe. Gone forever, never to return. And then just breathe in and out a little bit and feel the peace inside of you when you let all that crap go. Just feel the peace. Okay, and let's now breathe in some of that golden, loving, living light. So take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and as you breathe out, just let that beautiful, golden, living, loving light, the light of God, the light of you, the light of love. This is the game of life, the game of love. So let that golden, loving light in. And just in your own mind, see it filling every part of your body, every molecule, fiber, all the spaces in between. And just feel yourself filled with that peaceful, loving light now. And you can just keep that light in you and just breathe it in and out. Breathing it in and breathe it out back to the universe and feel that peace. Alright. And I'd like to ask my higher self to be present as I record this video and to give me the best advice that I can possibly give to you, offer to you at this moment in time. And I ask for continuing improvements in the advice that I give. And you can ask your higher self to give you the best possible advice for you at this moment in time. And you can ask your higher self to be ever more present within you. So invite your higher self to be there with you. And you can do this at any time. Okay, just focus on your heart and ask your higher self, your higher levels of consciousness to be present within you and to give you the guidance. And ultimately the goal is that you are living your life entirely from the perspective of your higher self, the observer. Okay? So you are your higher self. Haha. And then you work harmoniously with your unconscious mind, which has all of those programs in there, all of the good programs, because your unconscious mind loves you very much. Absolutely loves you. Absolutely. Your higher self absolutely loves you. The God Force absolutely loves you. You absolutely love you. I absolutely love you. The game of life is the game of love. Alright? That's the game of life. Right? It's not the one that we were taught when we were kids and growing up and with all of the crazy media and stuff like that out there in the world. Okay, so today we're going to look at A Child is Born. Okay, so I'm going to lead you through this, and I'm going to discuss a few things, and I'm going to offer a few ideas for you to think about. So, the higher self is up here, top left hand corner in the light, infinite, immortal, full of love, eager to have all of these experiences and evolve in consciousness to higher and higher levels of consciousness, higher and higher frequency. Okay, so the higher self goes, okay, all right, I want to have an experience, I want to learn a lesson. So the higher self looks down around planet Earth, and there's all of these people who are thinking about having a baby. Alright, and it looks around and it decides, okay, I've got a goal that I want to achieve in this lifetime, and I've got X amount of time to do it, and there's going to be certain scenarios in life which are going to give me the experiences and the situations in life that I need in order to be able to get these learnings. So the higher self is sitting up here and it goes, okay. So it looks at different aspects of life. So it looks at the education. So what kind of education is this child going to have? Is it going to be basic, college, university? Okay. What kind of body? You know, is it male or female? What's going to give me the best experience? Am I going to drop in there as a male this time or a female? Is the body great or is it not so great? So is the higher self going to hop down in a body which, you know, needs a bit of work, a bit of love and attention? And maybe that's the lesson it's looking to achieve in this lifetime. Okay, so it thinks about the body. And then it thinks about the country. What sort of country? Is it in the east or the west? Is it in the countryside? Or is it in an urban environment? Is it a rich country or a poor country? What kind of stupid beliefs and stupid rules do these people have in this country? Right? And I'll come back to stupid rules later. Right, it's one of the topics that I want to go through in more detail. Okay, what sort of a family? Okay, are they a tough family? Alright, are they, you do this, you do that, blah blah blah? Is it a really strict family? Or is it an easygoing family? You know, where they're like, yeah man, no problem. Is it a one-parent family or a two-parent family? You know, is it a single mum out there? You know, met the husband and it didn't work out, and the husband's gone and left her with the baby or several babies, and you know, maybe the higher self is thinking of popping in as the third child or something in a single mum family. Is it a rich family or a poor family? Okay, how programmed is that family? Are they wise? Are they on the path in life? Or are they, I've put down here stupid, and that's probably a bit judgmental, but are they stupid? Are they television watching, you know, couch potatoes? Absolutely zero evolution at this point in time. Right? How many brothers and sisters? Okay. So what sort of, out of all of this mix, this sort of cocktail here, what sort of career or job would the child have? Would it be skilled? You know, would it become a plumber or a, you know, a carpenter, a lawyer, an accountant? What's the likelihood what sort of career or job or direction programming is that child likely to have based on all of this other stuff, right? Or is it unskilled? It's going to be a factory worker or a cleaner or something like that. All right. So when the higher self looks down and it looks at all these different aspects of a human life, right, it tries to decide what combination of all of this stuff. So in the higher self's infinite wisdom, and maybe it's been here and had a few lives before, so it's got a bit of a knowing of that. Or maybe it's a younger higher self, a younger spirit, or a younger soul, and it's just sort of dabbling for the first time. All right? So the higher self has a bit of a concept, and it goes, okay, that's the combination that I want. And it just sits there and it waits. And it sort of waits up there, and then it sees a couple down there, and, they're just about to make love. I think this is, the point of inception of the higher self into the human experience is in that love-making initial scenario. So it kind of waits, and then it goes, oh, okay, over there, those two, boom, and it's in. And the consciousness comes in, and then we're on to the next stage. Okay, so the next stage, the higher self projects itself into the body. Okay, and the child is born, and the child has an unconscious mind. Okay, and so from the age of 0 to 5 to 7 years old, the child has an unconscious mind. So there's no conscious awareness there. There's no persona, there's no intellect, there's very little in the way of actual programming, but it begins to pick up its programming from the point of being in the womb, from that sort of feeling and experience of the family, etc. So it starts to fill its mind with programming. And the higher self can then easily project itself into the unconscious mind of the child and energize that from the unconscious mind to the universe, which brings back, it arranges and projects that reality back into the child. And obviously the child lives within a family environment, so if it's 2 or 3 years old, it's not going to go, right, I'm off now, I'll see you later, mum and dad, I'm off to have my life experience. The child is in that family environment, but there are certain things that it has, like the higher self has choice for it to move towards, and I'll go into those in a second. So the higher self projects itself into the kid, and the kid then, the unconscious mind of the kid, energizes it to the universe, and the universe arranges and projects that reality back. Okay, so this is a very, very simple picture. But if you remember that story I told you at the beginning about being in that big room and we had to find that card, the person who found the card the fastest was the little kid. Okay, it had a more direct connection with its higher self than any of the adults. All right, I'll talk more about adult in a while, but in fact I'll leave that for now. I'll talk more about adults in a while. Okay, next screen. So the higher self projects these ideas into the unconscious mind of the child, and then all of these operating systems, these operational programs are created in the child's wonderful mind. Okay, so the parents might teach it, clean your teeth, and it might, pick up, move my left finger, move my right finger, move my middle finger, shake my arms around, smile, etc. And kids smile a lot, right? Kids really smile a lot. So that's the higher self coming through. It's kind of like telling the little kid what to do and having a learning experience. So childhood is generally a happy time, or maybe it's not. So the higher self projects gifts and talents. So the higher self would project something like being a good friend, or drawing, or singing, or dancing, or being active outdoor kid, running around in the garden, stuff like that. So the higher self is projecting that stuff into the child's unconscious mind, and the unconscious mind is then projecting it to the universe, and the universe is projecting experiences back. Okay, so if you've noticed little kids, some of them sit on their own and draw, or paint pictures or things like that. Some little kids can't stop talking, and they've got loads of friends, and they play around, they're laughing and joking and dancing around. And then there's other little kids want to pick up a golf club and sort of swing around with a golf club, or run up and down the garden all day long driving their parents crazy. Right? So this, I believe, all comes from the higher self, which is projecting these little talents, these gifts and talents into the child, which the child then begins to practice until such a point as the parents go, no, don't be stupid, you can't earn money as an artist, you can't earn money as a blah blah blah. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of gifts and talents, and these are the gifts here. So the higher self projects all these gifts and talents into the unconscious mind of the child, and it's observing, right? It's enjoying the whole process, and the child's running around happy, having a great time. And then the first interaction really is the parents, grandparents, immediate family, brothers, sisters. And so they're projecting all of their programs, and a little kid is observing, right? And if you've noticed little kids, they'll sort of watch things, they sort of go into a trance and they observe stuff, and that's programming. And I cover that in Super Learning the Masters. It's a natural way of learning. Children have a natural way of learning, which is basically eradicated by the educational system, right? So that's why kids can pick up so much skills, talents, knowledge, information so quickly. It's because they have a natural way of learning, right? So they observe the parents. Okay, are the parents happy, free, loving, full of well-being, balanced and love? Or are the parents alcoholics, drug addicts, angry, unhappy, workaholics, absent parents? Are they divorcees, single mother, single father? Are they unwell parents? Are they stressed parents? Are they prejudiced parents? Are they fearful parents? Okay, so all of this stuff that the child starts to pick up in its mind, and all that stuff forms these little programs in the child's mind. Okay, and then we've got school. All right, so, and we've got friends. So what happens at school? Okay, what are the teachers like? What's the school like? What are the other kids like? Is it a tough school? All right, is it one of those schools where the kids are really tough and they hit each other and beat each other up and get in little gangs and stuff like that? Or is it a loving school, perhaps where, it's more relaxed, one of these sort of more modern hippie schools that are out there? Okay, or perhaps the kids are home educated in a group. A few parents get together and they decided to home educate and take turns home educating. Or is it a strict, private school where everyone has to wear a suit and they have a lot of stupid rules? All right, so what kind of school life is being projected on that child? What kind of programming is going into that child's mind? Think about that. Okay, and then the friends. What are the friends like? And if I cast my mind back to when I was at school, I sort of hung out with certain groups of friends. I didn't hang out in one specific group. I had a couple of groups of friends, and then I mixed with the other people as well, the other kids as well. So if I look back at my school days, I didn't really feel like I belonged in any specific group, but I did have a couple of groups of friends that I spent more time in than others. But then there's other kids out there who just gravitate towards one group, and it might be the punk rockers, or it might be the modern dancers, or it could be the sports kids, or it could be the scholarly kids, or something like that. So all of those friends, they have an influence, right? So if there's normally leaders in these little groups of friends at school. So if one of them decides he's going to be a punk rocker, all of a sudden all the other kids are punk rockers. Okay, And then on top of that, we got media, and this is really a huge influence on children today. I mean, it is hijacking their consciousness, right? And we've got the television nanny. Grandparents used to look after the kids, or perhaps in a slightly better off family, they might have an au pair or something like that. Or back in the days when both parents didn't have to work, when only one parent needed to work to pay all the bills, the mum would be at home looking after the kids, right? But these days we've got the media nanny, and it's all the games, so the kids play these war games and they get absorbed by these computer games, and they come home from school and the parents park them in front of the television because they'll shut up and give them a bit of peace because they're so stressed out. Right? So media is a huge influence on children today. I mean, I observe things, right? I look at life, right? And I encourage you to look at life too. And the amount of kids these days I see, sitting down instead of playing, instead of going out in the street and playing, they're sitting there with iPhones and iPads and stuff like that, and and there might be 4 or 5 kids at a table with some parents somewhere, and all the kids have got their own iPad, and none of them are interacting with each other. They might sort of look across and see what game the other one's playing, but that whole sort of physicality of being a child, it's moved so much now towards media, towards games, towards television, towards computers, and the kids get lost in these computer stuff, and they get very, very heavily influenced by the games that they play. Right? And I think I mentioned yesterday in the little summing up audio how many kids play war games these days. If a kid plays war games for the first 10 years of its life, all right, what kind of adult is it going to grow up to be? Okay, so think about those things. And other things to think about are books. What kind of books are popular these days? What kind of magazines are popular these days? What kind of music is popular these days, right? Because music is powerful. There's lyrics in music. Music evokes emotion. But also be aware of the lyrics, the words of these songs, right? Because, music evokes emotion and the barriers go down and all of the program flows in much more easily, right? So be aware of the music that you're listening to. Be aware of the lyrics that you listen to, okay? So all of this stuff goes into the kid's mind. So around 5 to 7 years, the child develops a conscious mind. And the higher self now has to access the child more and more via the conscious mind with varying degrees of success. And this is where the separation really starts. Right? As soon as that conscious mind is formed, the ability to judge and perceive and think, the beginnings of a personality, the intellect, the persona, the identity that the child takes on. Is it a punk rocker? Or is it one of the boffins, the students, the bookworms? All of these ego programs. So the child now starts to begin to think based on its programming. Now, if you think about kids, right? Most parents, most people love children. Right? They love animals and they love children. Okay, so why do they love animals and why do they love children? It's because they have such an access to the higher self. And because there's an access to the higher self, there's more energy. So children have this purity of energy in them, and it's attractive to the parents. So most parents love their children. They love them. Right? They love the little kid and oh, look at him, look at his smile. And we play with these kids and we laugh and we play and we have fun. And then around 5 to 7 years old, we start to, that rotten child, that naughty child, that blah, blah, blah child. And what's happening is the parents are seeing a reflection. It's a sacred mirror, perhaps of some of their own patterns. Right, so they start to sort of not like the child as much because the child is reflecting them back to them. So if they've got a child, if they don't really listen to anyone, and they're a bit sort of moody and stuff like that, and all of a sudden the child starts becoming a bit moody and doesn't really listen to them and things like that, their parents don't like it, right? So around 5 to 7 years, the child's got this conscious mind, okay? And it starts getting this personality, and it starts doing things that it wants to do. It doesn't really want to obey the rules, right, that the parents have. Okay, next slide. Okay, so life is a wonderful or not journey. So it's a journey from the light to the light. So we begin our lives as a spark of consciousness in our mother's womb, and then we're born, and then we go along this sort of journey like this, and we go through our whole lives, and at the end of our lives we go back into the light again, right? Well, we're actually in the light all the time. Our higher selves are in the light all the time. Okay, so this is the journey of life. It's a journey from the light to the light, okay, or back to the light. And the idea really is to bring that light in through the whole journey. And if you look at a series of lifetimes, it's a journey from the light to the light, from the light to the light, from the light to the light. So the higher self drops down and it has all these sequential life experiences. And if you study Neville Goddard and listen to some of his audios, he talks about the different states, right? States of consciousness that are represented in the Bible. And they go from Abraham to Jesus. So there's a series of states that are represented in the Bible. And we're here to experience each of those states, right? And then if you listen to Neville Goddard's latter years, the final state is Jesus. It's where there's absolute love, right? There's an absolute connection. And then the God force comes back in. Boom. So if you cast your mind back to the video yesterday, where the God force created this separation in order that it could experience itself, okay, what ultimately happens is the higher self is here, has a series of lifetimes and experiences, and then the God force is able to come fully back down into the body, into the person, and experience that life on earth absolutely in the person. And that's one of the big stories of Neville Goddard's teachings. It's the Jesus state, the I am state, the I am God state. Okay, so the part of you that is eternal, the real you, is your higher self. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. And on this slide, we've got a bit of the story of life, right? And this is before we move on to the next video, which is called Programming 101. So ABC, this is our initial learning in life, our school, all the rest of it. You can see all the kids down here and the teacher. And we learn all this stuff. We learn it from the family and the friends and the situation, etc., etc. And then we go out into life, and then there's all these people, and some are sort of, not really smiling, and others don't really know whether to smile or not, and then some are smiling. And life tells us, society tells us, all the stupid rules tell us the ego's way, this way, it's on television, go this way, it's the easy way. There's people reading the how-to books, the safe way. Right, so everybody goes off this way, and they take the wrong advice, or they have complacency, or they have, whatever experiences they have down there, and they end up in their ego, right? And their ego doesn't really make them happy, and they're, oh my God, da, 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 da. And then they have some kind of an experience which shoots them back towards what is the perfect life path, which has many, many zillions of variations, okay, which is where the higher self is there with the inner guidance, living your life with you. It's a life of love and peace and flow and joy and happiness. Okay, and then the ego comes back down here and the person has an experience of this love and peace and, in the zone and how it feels good, and then, oops, the television and the safe way and the how-tos, they all come back in again. And the stress and the worry and, oh no, the person ends up in ego again and it's a disaster again. And then, boom, they have some kind of an experience which shakes them out of that ego and it sends them back on the path. And they have an experience of the love and the peace and the flow, and then boom, they get misguided again. They're listening to their ego again. And they end up back in the ego, and they've got fear and addiction and all sorts of other dysfunctions. And then they have another experience over here, and boom, they're out of that ego disaster state, and they're back into the joy, the happiness. But they still haven't let go of all that rubbish, all the recycled garbage that people recycle day in and day out in their minds that keeps them in their ego dysfunction. And then they end up lost, suffering, back in the ego. So most people are living their lives in ego, which is this, crazy place out here where it just will never work, right? They'll never get what they want. Right, because the ego always wants more. It's so limited, yeah? Because it's just a little program or a series of little programs, right? Okay, but if you can get on this inner guidance path, this higher self path, when you ask your higher consciousness, the real you, the true you, who you are, when you ask that part of you in, this is the life, right? And this is also where the experience is. So the higher self might have thought, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of ego over here, but, if I get a little bit of ego over here and bounce back into here, finally I'm going to get it. I'm going to flow down this happy path. Right? So there's probably a mix in order to get the perfect lifestyle. All right. That really sums it up for this video. It's just a really quick overview of how a child is born, how a child is programmed, and what effects that has on a child's life. So I just want to sum up a couple of points here from my paper. I've got some notes. Okay, living from ego program is a limited life. All right, it's very limited because the ego is a program and it can only do what's already been done. All right, so whatever society's already done, that's the absolute limits of what the ego can do. Right? When people invent something new, it comes from their higher selves. It doesn't come from the ego. So the ego will regurgitate and recycle all of the crap and rubbish that is currently out there in society. And as you know, it is filling up with more and more crap and rubbish. Okay? Now, living from the perspective of your higher self, which is you, it's your true self, it's who you really are. That's living from a perspective of infinite perception. Right? It's beyond this physical time zone. Okay? Beyond this physical dimension. It's multi-dimensional. Okay? So start to notice now. Right? This is a process of waking up. Start to notice now and use your notebook. Notice some of your own programs. All right, this is waking up. When you can actually observe yourself doing something which is ridiculous, then you know that you're on the point of breaking out of the box that you were in as regards to that program. Okay? So if you read the paper every day and then you get in a bad mood after reading the paper, or you get depressed, you can begin to notice yourself buying a newspaper at the newspaper stand every morning You know, you come out yourself, a house, you're feeling really good about yourself, happy, beautiful, sunshiny day. You go and buy a newspaper, you read it on the way to work. When you get to work, you're depressed. Okay? When you can start to notice that habit of, say, buying a newspaper and link that to whatever, you know, results you're getting, emotions, feelings, etc., then you are in your higher self. You are the observer. You are observing the program, and the program does not have much life left in it. Okay? It will be de-energized soon. So when you notice these silly things that you do, when you notice these stupid rules that you have, right, that's when they're on the way out. You know they're on the way out, and I'll show you some ways to get rid of them. Okay? This is the awakening process. Once you can see it, you're no longer living life in it. Okay, so if the ego has a silly program, a stupid rule, once you can see that it's a stupid rule, you've broken it. And the more you observe it, the more quickly it breaks. Alright? So just have a think about what programs you run in your life where you slip into ego's unconsciousness and then you sort of wake back out of at some point. Okay? Observe your life. Become the observer of your life. Alright? And in this course, you're going to learn how to become the creator and the observer of your life. Okay? I'll just have a look at my other notes, see if there's anything else that feels appropriate for this point. Okay, something that's really important, and I've mentioned this before, and I call it the number one team. So it's my number one team, and you can have your number one team, right? And it's where the higher self, your higher self, which is you, your conscious mind, which is you, it's your intellect, it's your perception, it's you focusing your attention, it's you having your experiences, your unconscious mind, which is where you store your programs, memories, etc., and you connect to the universe so the universe can send it back, and your body, which is your vehicle for your experience, which is your spacesuit in this physical reality, where all of these are aligned as one in love, okay, or aligned in love as one. When you get that working harmoniously together, that's when things really start shifting. Okay, now all of these ego programs are in your unconscious mind, and you know, when you look at some of the silly things that we do and we label it as ego, it's easy to sort of be against the ego. Oh, my ego made me do that. I can't believe it. What did my ego make me do that for? Or my ego's been ruining my life. You've got to kind of love your ego, and at the same time, you've got to be the master of it. Okay, so ego is really a bunch of energized programs which kind of take over and you fall asleep in. So they're like a sleeping program. So any time that you sort of lose track of time, where maybe you get in your car and you drive and then it's a half an hour journey and it feels like 5 minutes, and you turn up and you go, oh, I'm here already. Okay, that's where you've slipped into your ego programming. Right? But you've got to love your ego, you've got to love all of the programs of your unconscious mind, and you've got to be the master of them with your consciousness, with your intellect persona, right? From the perspective of your higher self. Okay? And this might sound like there's a lot to do in the beginning, but it becomes quite easy as you keep going on and practicing it. Alright, so love your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind loves you. Okay, so learn to love your unconscious mind and thank it for every experience that you get, because it's delivering what it thought you wanted, whether or not it is actually what you wanted. It's trying to give you what it thought you wanted. Okay, so your ego is part of your unconscious mind, but you want to be observing it and de-energizing those parts of it which don't really serve you. Okay, so it's a process of de-energizing the memories, de-energizing the patterns, de-energizing the programs, de-energizing the beliefs, the stupid rules that don't really serve you. Okay, so begin to wake up, begin to notice your stupid rules, begin to notice the silly things that you do that don't really give you the life that you want to live. Okay, so that's it for this video. It's been a bit longer than expected, as per usual. But I feel like I've sort of expressed what I wanted to express, and if you have any questions, please ask. And I will see you on the next video, which is Programming 101. And from here on in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do shorter, more precise videos. Okay, so what we've had so far is a bit of a story, and now we're going to look at specific aspects of the story. Alright, so we're going to look at specific aspects of programming. So you're going to see more videos, but they're going to be shorter. Okay, God bless. I love you. Thank you so much. And I'm glad, so glad that you're here and that you're waking up and that you're on this life path. And, you know, we're all on this life path together. So I'm just so happy that you're here. Thank you so much.